Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen to the everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. The doctor saving lives at your local hospital, the war veteran down the street who risked his lives for our freedom, the police officers and firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling, but there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer, the ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people, and I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world, others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks of the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and I am live on the line today with Kimberly Spencer. Are you on the line here with us?
Here I am on the line, on the wire.
Awesome. So glad to have you here today. Quick introduction for those of my guests who don't know who you are. Kimberly Spencer is an award-winning high-performance coach and trainer, Amazon bestselling co-author, international motivational speaker, and founder of crownyourself.com. And you help high achievers build their empire and sparkle with holistic fulfillment in their bodies, businesses, and relationships. So that sounds like it's a really big topic. What I want to start with is, what is it that you're known for now? Why do people call up Kimberly or ask you to come speak or read your books? What is it that Kimberly's known for?
A lot of my clients, they're successful in one area of their life and they're doing well in their career, but they have their passion projects. They have their side hustles. They have something that they really want to get off the ground. And that's where high performance comes in, is how, like, when you think that you're already busy and you're like, how do I continue doing this thing that really fulfills me, that I really would love to turn into being my main thing maybe? That's where I come in, because I help them bridge that gap. And then we scale that side hustle and make it so that they're creating on all cylinders. And sometimes they stay in their career path, and sometimes they have both, and sometimes they switch over. But that's my jam for the visionary.
That's really awesome. What's fun about that is that's actually what I'm currently doing with my business right now. For anyone who's been listening to our podcast for the last couple of episodes, I mentioned this before the show, we're starting to spin up a business called Push Button Podcasts, which was a side business for me. And working on turning that into being our main income driver. We're hiring team members and really scaling that side of the business. But like, I get it. Like, I've got a whole other business I have to run and keep going and make sure that all my clients are satisfied there while we're like putting effort and building this other thing. So like, and I could definitely see how it bring someone in to help you manage that if you don't have experience doing it would be really, really helpful.
It's super fun, and I love doing it because I work with a lot of creatives. Like, I don't really even market to demographics. Like, I know in marketing, sometimes I talk about like, who's your niche? And I'm like, I have a psychological niche for sure. Like, I can break them down psychologically, but if I were to say like, it's female entrepreneurs, I would eliminate half of my clients.
Crazy people.
What?
I said check one, crazy people.
Check one. Revolutionary, visionary leader.
Yeah.
Cool. Once you do that, once you're crazy enough to then say, I'm going to follow my passion and follow my bliss, that's when you work with me.
I get it. Yeah. Almost my entire family either thinks I'm crazy or is just gotten to the point where they're like, you're obviously successful doing what you're doing, even though I don't have a clue what's going on. So
yeah, my dad just found out how much money I made last month, and he was like, oh, okay. I was like, yep, you can do it.
I got my birthday card from my dad this last year. Said something really nice on it. It was something along the lines of, I still don't really understand what you do, but like your success is really obvious. He's like, I couldn't be more proud. And I was like, oh, it only took me 10 years to get there.
Right?
from "Why are you ruining your life" to "I'm really proud of you." So, uh,
Oh, parents.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's fun.
it's fun. Are you a parent?
I am. I have 4 children.
Holy moly.
Yeah,
I
and
have
even
one
more
toddler, and
fun than
that's
that.
exhausting.
I live in a 40-foot RV, and we travel the country full time. So
So cool. That is
here,
so cool.
I'll break the illusion for you. This is our backdrop hanging up in our RV.
I love
Closet back
it.
there, and like you can't see it, like
Wow.
there's the RV bathroom, right? Whole thing.
That's the coolest.
I've got a miniature studio set up in the RV right now, where we are in central Missouri, and I've ruined my focus on my camera. It's gonna focus on the backdrop now. Give me half a second.
We'll figure
There
it
we
out.
go. Turn off. There we go. Now it'll focus on me. So yeah,
My
ruin the
son thinks
illusion.
ruin the illusion. But hey, I mean, I love the fact that you are so transparent about that, because it's something that, when you can bust that bubble of the illusion of what people have of the paradigm of like how you live your life and how you do your business and how you do you, and people are
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like that, I can do it too.
I'm literally sitting at a dresser that I chopped half the dresser off and turned it into a desk so I could do this while traveling.
That's extraordinary. That's so much fun. I love
Yeah.
that. Like one of
Yeah.
our goals is to do a road trip around the country and convert a school bus, because my son's just
Oh
obsessed
yeah.
with school
Nice.
buses, and convert a school bus and do like totally Captain Fantastic style parenting and just climb up rock walls
Oh,
and
we've done all of it and
yep.
more, right? We've been to 26 states, a little over 20,000 miles traveling in 2.5 years. We made baby number 4 on the road, had her in Texas.
Wow. Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so it's super cool. But yeah, that's part of the whole, parents thinking we're crazy thing. But to you ask, am I a parent? Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, obviously. 4 kids, holy moly. But I mean, you've got some sort of system down so that they do their thing and they're thriving and getting to experience the world. I mean, when my husband and I first set out to have kids, we decided early on that we wanted them to learn from experience. And so we're already like known as the crazy people who want to homeschool or like online school. And I was like, well, I'd much rather, take him to Argentina for 6 months to be able to
Experience the culture.
experience
Yeah.
tango, learn Spanish, and come back completely fluent than do what I did and spend 4 years in high school in a school and like totally forget my French. And I have
And
enough
learn
French.
nothing.
Yeah, I have enough French to get by. And if I'm in like France or Switzerland, I'm able to adapt and kind of understand. But I'm like, that was 4 years of school that just
Yeah,
nope.
I can say "Donde está el baño" in Spanish, right? For my 4 years of Spanish, right? So I know I can get to the bathroom, which is an important skill.
It is. I can say "Ou la toilette" as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. So you
very
can find
important
the
skills.
toilet and the library, you know.
And mis
La
pantalones en
biblioteca.
fuego.
So, but yeah, we've been homeschooling them. We're road schooling them, I guess. My wife handles all of that because if I handled it, they wouldn't come out smart. So, but they've gotten to do all sorts of things. Everything from like my son got to go cliff diving this last year, and we took them all we went sliding off of waterfalls in Yosemite, which was super cool, and we got to see orcas up in the Puget Sound, and we're going over the East Coast this summer, and we're going to go the whole coast.
That's so cool. And I mean, look at what you're teaching them. Like, I know you just disparage yourself on saying you're not smart, but I think it takes a very smart and wise and apt man to grow 2 businesses, raise 4 children, do it on the road. So kudos to you. And the fact that you're letting them learn from experience is such a wonderful, rich life that they're getting, where they're not reading about it from a textbook wondering like, I wonder if I could. They're like, oh, I did it and I wasn't the biggest fan of rock climbing, or like I did it and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
It was like one of our favorite things so far for homeschooling was like my son was studying, I can't remember which part of history it is, whatever, the Alamo, right? And remember the Alamo, and we got to go to the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, and they got to watch the movie. And then every day they have volunteers that come to the Alamo and do like live reenactments of like the wars, and they had medical doctors there, and like they stayed in character. and you got to like learn from them and do some of those things. Like, that is super cool, right? Like, I learned more about the Alamo with my kids than I ever did in school, right? So I
I
feel like
know.
we're educating ourselves, and our kids just get to benefit from it.
Amen. Amen. I always say that my son is my greatest coach. I mean, I've had some amazing coaches, but my son, like, giving birth to him and raising him, I mean, he's only 2.5, but he's such a mirror for me. And when I saw, like, when he was like 6 months, 7 months old, I saw how I process shame. And I was watching him. I was like, holy crap, that's how I experience shame when I'm told not to do something and I feel bad about doing it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So it gave me
Just wait
such
till
a
wait till they get to the age where they're where they can really communicate with you, like
yeah,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
yeah.
Then they just blow you away, because they're like, you've given them all like they come out a blank slate, so everything they have you've given them, and you get to sort of see all of your stuff come back and see how it like actually works for another person. It's really, really interesting.
So cool.
Yeah, it's super fun. So I'm going to move on a little bit with the interview and talk about your origin story, right? We talk on the show all the time. Every hero has an origin story. It's where you started to realize that you were different, that maybe you had superpowers and maybe you could use them to help people, where you started to discover or develop the value you can really bring to this world. How did that happen for you?
Well, it took me a while to recognize my superpowers, but now I'm pretty adept at them. Like I grew up with my parents are awesome. They just have their issues. My dad was an alcoholic up until about 3 years ago when I staged his intervention. And that was one of the best training grounds for me as a child to be a coach, because I learned how to calibrate behavior before engaging. I learned how to read people, and I also learned how to read when they're bullshitting. And that was a fantastic training ground. The other thing that is one of the common questions I actually ask my clients is, when you were about 4 or 5 years old, who were you? Like, who did you want to be? How did you operate? What did you get in trouble for? And what did you get, what did you want to
for? That's an interesting question.
What did you want to be? So what I got in trouble for was challenging. I got in trouble for challenging my dad on his behavior, because I would see him sober and be like, oh my gosh, he's so cool. I want to hang out with him. I want to go to the park with him. But then when he would come home drunk, he was just it was like Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
And that was such a wonderful experience for me, because I saw, that I have this superpower where I see people in their highest magnificence. I see people like achieving their goals, sometimes even before my clients do. Like one of my clients, I was working with her for 2 years, and she started growing $1 million company as the director of operations of it. And when we first started, she was a hot mess, like totally hot mess, fresh off divorce, didn't know what she was doing with her life. And suddenly she was growing this company. And I remember we were just concluding like 2 years. She was like ready to spread her wings. And she was like, did you think that this was possible for me? And without missing a beat, I was like, of course I did. Of course I did. 100%. I've always seen not the how of like growing the company, but the who she could become, the confident, outspoken, courageous leader that she could be. I saw that and I was like, let's bring that girl out more. And so that's one of my skill sets. But when you're 5 and you're challenging your parent on holding them to a higher standard of behavior, doesn't quite work out that well.
Yeah, you get in trouble for that.
Yeah, so I got in trouble for that a lot. And the other thing that I wanted to be was, one of my superpowers was organizing people. So I'd organize and corral all the neighborhood children into productions. And
my son does that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I would have these big birthday party productions. My mom one time made like 20 Pocahontas costumes for every single girl that came to my birthday party. I would put on a show. There would be music. The parents would like be required to stay. I would sell products on the side of bags of glitter water. And I didn't realize now, but I realized I was split testing price points, because I was selling them for either 5 cents or $50. And
there you go.
Yeah. I only sold the 5 cents one for some strange reason. Nobody bought the 50.
You would have got outside of the range for price elasticity.
Yeah. But you know what? I gave it a shot. And so that's what I used to do. And now I look at, and I also wanted to be a princess. And so I look at what I've created and what I've built with my company. And I am on live streams. I have my podcast. I'm on other podcasts. I'm performing in essence, even though it's all authentically me. And I'm directing the show as an entrepreneur. You're kind of the director of the show. You're the producer of it. So and sometimes when you start a business, you're the financial backer. So you're the executive producer of it. Mm-hmm. And then you are responsible for creating the products and services. And so that's exactly what I did. And I called my company Crown Yourself. So now I'm a princess, or as I call it, a queen.
There you go. Yeah. My 2-year-old was just telling me yesterday that she was the queen of the world.
Good for her.
So, yeah. She was like, I'm the queen. And I'm like, I agree. You're the queen. And she was like, now you need to bow down to me. I'm like, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
You're like, you're the queen in training. Yeah. Papa's the king. It's so cute. My son sees crowns and he's like, Mama, crown. He points to my head. He also points to his Wonder Woman shirt and is like, Mama. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I'm right. Wonder Woman.
That's right.
That's awesome. Yeah. My she's 3 now. She has, what do you call it? Depending on the day.
Yeah.
She tells me in the morning whether or not she likes me that day.
Oh, that's
and she'll
nice.
come in and she'll be like, Daddy, today's not your day. I don't like you today. and she'll be like, Mom can only help me with everything, and like I can't. She like, if I try to help her put her shoes on or go to the bathroom or anything, she like flips a lid, and then like the next day she'll be like, Daddy, I love you today. You're the best daddy in the whole world.
It's your day today, Dad, to have all the responsibility now.
Yeah, to have all the responsibility, because she's, as far as she's concerned, she's the queen.
Yeah.
So
I like
she
her.
gets to decide all
She's
those
a leader. Like I see leadership skills in my son, and he's it's funny now because my dad sees my son a lot. I wouldn't, like, if he had been drinking, he would not have a relationship, but it's really nice that he's sober and has been sober for the past 3 years. And so like he gets to have a really full relationship with my child. And like, he's like, Kim, he's a challenger, like, get ready. And I was like, guess who raises him? Like, I'm fully prepared for the challenge, fully prepared for the little leader to pop out.
I am kind of a little bit worried for the teenage years, not for the normal reasons, but because I've realized early that I'm pretty sure all my kids are smarter than me. They haven't realized it yet, which I'm hoping will last a long time. But I got some bright, very, very stubborn children on my hands, which is, my fault.
The great thing is that you have experience. Like, there's smart and then there's wisdom learned from experience.
That is accurate. It's one of the things I actually tell my kids all the time. We have rules posted at the house, and like there's 7 rules and they have to follow them. They're pretty simple, wide reaching, but one of them is obey the first time. And so we have it up there, and like,
I have to write that down.
Yeah, I could send you a picture of our whole rule list if you want.
Oh, yes, please. I would love that.
The obey the first time is like, and we tell them all the time, we expect immediate obedience. And the reason why we expect immediate obedience is because I have perspective you don't have. If I yell stop, it's because you're going to get run over by a car, right? That you can't see because you're small, right? And I was like, you are always welcome to question my authority after you obey.
I love that.
Yeah. And so you obey first and then you can question, because I'm more than happy to give you my reasons and what we're doing, because I don't just expect you to obey blindly, and I don't expect you to obey blindly when you become an adult either. Right. But I have perspective you don't have. For this point in your life, you obey first, then you can question.
Yeah.
So anyways, hopefully that'll help curb some of that when they become teenagers.
I love that rule though, because we kind of have that, but I like how you've like really made it quite formulaic and repeatable. So, I mean, because we've been teaching our son to, stop. When we say stop, we actually don't say no, because your unconscious mind does not process negatives. And so we don't tell him like, don't do this. We tell him stop, or we say that's a stop, because that way he actually does stop. Every time. It was so funny. He was having a play date with another kid, and the other kid's mom has been a longtime friend of mine. And all she said was like, don't do that. Don't hit, don't hit, don't hit. And meanwhile, her son is just like throwing swings. And I'm like, it's because all he's hearing is hit, 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 hit. Because his unconscious mind does not process negatives. And our unconscious mind still don't process negatives. As I said, don't think about chocolate. What are you thinking about?
You think about chocolate.
Exactly. And so when you recognize that, then suddenly it's like, and then between the age of 0 and 6, they're just like little sponges and like basically giant walking unconscious minds. So it exemplifies it. So we just say that's a stop, and that's been pretty solid, though sometimes both my husband and I have to watch our language because it's still so like ingrained in us to sometimes be like, don't do that.
It's interesting because like thinking through our rules, I didn't realize this, but ours are all, they're phrased in the positive, right? So obey the first time it's a positive command.
Yes.
One of my other favorite rules is ask before touching, because it has wide reaching effects on into later life.
Yes, amen.
And but yeah, I didn't realize that they're all phrased in the positive, but I didn't like consciously think that when we were putting the rules together. So that's an interesting
So you're smarter than you think you are.
probably it's from that wisdom we were talking about earlier. But yeah, the having that sort of set up really has helped our children. And like you said, they're sort of sponges their first 6 years. And my son is 10 now, and I can't actually tell you the last time he's been disciplined. Because he's like, he just understands, like he knows what the process is, knows what the rules are, and he follows them. But I mean, that doesn't mean he doesn't challenge us and do all the, other things that go along with being a 10-year-old boy, but he's just a fantastic kid. And all of our kids are, which is super cool.
And I think that really comes with having integrity with your children and having integrity with your word. I was working with a client just last week because her kids just walked all over her. And I said, well, how often are you telling them that you're going to take away something and then you don't do it? And so I call it street cred. And so you have to have like if you're a gangster and you say that you're going to pop someone for not paying you and you don't do it, you lose your street cred and you might die. But
and your kids are definitely like gangsters. So.
And your kids are definitely like gangsters. And so you got to build up that street cred so that they know that when you say that's a stop, like my son, like I just put him in a timeout yesterday because I asked him a question and he lied to me. And I said, did you lie? And he said, no. I said, okay, so you just lied twice because I asked you this and I walked him through the steps. I said, and so you know what the consequence for lying is that you go into a 2-minute timeout. And so he sat in his 2-minute timeout, and then he came out of his 2-minute timeout and he goes, Dada, I lied 2 times. Because I said,
that's excellent.
We need to be honest. You need to be honest with mommy and daddy about everything. Like, just be honest. Like, you won't get in trouble if you're honest.
Yeah,
I mean,
it reminds me, we're getting to that stage in life with my oldest one that we're starting to smell a little bit. Right. You can't go a whole week without showering anymore. And
deodorant is a fun thing.
It's a good thing. And he got his first pimple the other week and he's like, and we're teasing him for growing up because that's what your parents do. But, tell him to go take a shower and he comes out of the shower and his hair's dry, like hasn't been touched by water kind of dry.
Yeah.
Not like was dried off dry, but no water at all. And I look at him, I'm like, so did you wash your hair in the shower? And he looks at me and goes, yeah, of course I did, Dad. And I ran my hand through his hair and I was like, you want to rethink your answer? And he's like trying to figure out what my angle is here. Because I'm giving him an opportunity to not lie to me about it. Because I was like, if you forgot to wash your hair, that's not a big deal. You can go back and wash your hair. But if you're gonna lie to me about it, then we're gonna have an issue.
Yes. Yep. 100%. Yeah. My son, he already does not like washing his hair. I'm like, ooh, we're gonna start that reprogramming of training you to like washing your hair because stinky boy hair is gnarly.
It's the worst.
It's gnarly.
Yeah. We got the stinky boy hair and the stinky boy feet right now.
And you're in such a small space.
I only have one boy though. The rest of them are girls. I don't know how that's going to go down as they get older, but hopefully they're all into the smelly goods. But yeah, the street cred thing's really big. We have a 5-step process we follow. with the rules. So if they break the rule, they get a warning. It's like, hey, here's the rule that you just broke. And if you choose to break it again, then we have consequences. Right.
Yeah.
So if they break the rule again, then they, it's like, hey, you broke the rule again, and they sit in timeout, same kind of thing. If they're 2 years old, they get a 2-minute timeout. And the timeout process is essentially they have to sit there, and it starts when they stop crying.
Oh.
So if they're going to have an hour-long freak out over it, then, it's an hour and 2 minutes for it, because they actually need to like sit and think about what they did. Most of the time, that only happens a couple of times, and then they're like, oh, that's not fun. So they sit for their couple-minute timeout, and then they have to at the end, we walk through them like, hey, here's what you did, and here's what rule you broke, and if you're in that situation again, we help them with their decision making, like how could you make a better decision in the future. And then we ask them to apologize. If they don't apologize, it starts over. And then at the end of it, we all get up and we have hugs and do a party dance and other things. We move on with our life. But if they, so it goes, warning, timeout 1. If they break it again, they get a second timeout. If they do it again, they get a timeout and a spanking. And if they go a 5th time, which only happens a few times, the day starts over for them and they just go to bed. So we've had, speaking of street cred, we've had a couple of times where a child has gone to bed like breakfast time, and they just miss out on the whole day, and we're like terrible about it. It's like, we'll make sure we have their favorite food for lunch and everything. And they miss out on their day.
Papa.
Yeah, we're terrible about it, but it also means that like it's been 5 or 6 years since I've had to discipline my son, because we got hardcore street cred.
Yeah. When you build that street cred up, you're not waiting when they're a teenager and being like, why aren't you paying for your own cell phone bill?
But what's also cool is like, because my son has 3 younger sisters, he'll tell them, they'd be like, you already broke that rule again. Like, do you want to go through? Like, he knows what the process is. He's like, he'll look out for his little sisters and be like, you should probably make better decisions.
Well done. I love that. And I love that you teach how to make decisions. You're not teaching them what to think, but you're allowing them to have that reason, and you're teaching them how to make decisions, which I think is so much better than teaching them what to think.
The goal, I think, is for us. Like, I don't particularly want them to be me. I want them to be them and have the skills to make their own choices, right? And just realize that like your choices have consequences, good or bad. Right. And at this point in time, I get to control your consequences. But when you get out in the world, you don't get to control those anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to man up and take them. So anyways, it works really well.
I love it. I love your process. I love your parenting process. Richard, you're just such a wealth of information for me.
My speaking of, my next question has to do with superpowers. My superpower has always been systems and process, right? Building systems and processes. And so my question for you is, what is it that you do or build or offer this world that really helps solve problems for people? What is your superpower? And the way I want you to think about it is, what's the one skill that you have that really enables all of your other skills? The one that you can sort of see the thread of that skill through all of your other skills. So like for me, it's always been systems and processes. And I realized a little while ago that like, I was like, someone asked me, it's like, what's your one thing? And I was like, I've got all these things I'm really good at. And she was like, you got to think harder. And so I started thinking about it, realized I'm good at a lot of these other things because I'm really good at understanding and breaking down the systems and processes. And, learning a new skill is really easy when you can see the processes that other people don't see. Right. So I found sort of what that underlying superpower was. So I'm curious, what do you think your superpower is in light of sort of that framing?
So I love that you call it that, because I call it something a little different. I call it the genius zone.
There you go.
And when you chunk up high enough and you look at all those things, because I was very good at a lot of things as well. I was like, I had a career as a screenwriter. I had a career as a Pilates instructor. I owned an e-commerce company. I had my business now, Crown Yourself, and coaching. And I was like, what made me really good at all of them? And when I looked at all of them, I saw a commonality between a few, which was creativity, connecting, and coaching. Now, the one that supersedes that trifecta is challenging. because in
Nice.
every area, coaching requires me to challenge my clients and their limiting beliefs. Creativity requires me to challenge myself on whatever thing I'm releasing or working on. And connecting requires me to challenge my own internal introverted self, to put myself out there. And it also challenges me to supersede the ego or the limiting beliefs that I used to have of scarcity. And, if I connect this person with this one, then what would it do for me? And I'm like, no. Now I'm all about karmic connections. And I just like, if I'm like, oh, you want to be on more podcasts, or you want to be, you want this thing? Okay, I know this person and I'll connect you with this person. And I expect nothing from it whatsoever. But it also allows me to put myself out there more, to connect with more humans, which challenges my inner introverted self that wants to crawl up in the corner and just hide from the world and just like sit in my bubble of lonely creativity. So that is challenging, is my superpower. And looking back, that's also what I got in trouble for as a kid. Was I challenged people, I challenged my dad, and I challenged myself to rise into my highest and best version of myself. And so as much as I have the introverted side, and as much as like there are parts of me that still want to play small, and as much as there are parts of me that still get fearful and doubtful, that challenger side, that challenger being my superpower, is like, it supersedes everything. And so I immediately know what to do when I catch myself slipping into old negative habits, or playing small, or not really playing full out. I immediately either challenge myself physically in some way, like I'll sign up for a marathon, or I'll like give birth to a baby in 24 hours and do it all natural, or like, that only happened once, but like it'll happen
I've done
again.
that 4 times now.
Oh,
I didn't do it.
Did your wife do like all natural,
Yeah,
midwives and all that?
we had 3 of them at home. Our first one was in a hospital. We tried to have him at home, but she had preeclampsia and almost died, so we had to go to a hospital.
Yeah.
And thank God for the medical system for when you have emergencies.
Yes.
So
I agree. It's very good for emergencies.
Yeah, it was still all natural. There was Pitocin to induce labor, but other than that, she had a whole natural labor with a very itty bitty baby. He was only 5 pounds.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
But yeah, there's so much that you just said. I want to sort of dive in and break down a little bit. A couple of things that really stuck out to me. One of them was the whole karmic thing. One of the things I talk about all the time is that the rule of the universe, like whether you abide by it or not, it like it's the way it works, right? And it comes, for me, it came from scripture, where Jesus says, "Give first, and then you will receive," right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that wasn't like an encouragement of like, you should do this. He was telling us like, this is the way that the universe works. Yeah. And it's like, you can sort of like, you can live that way or not, but if you live that way, like that's the way the world works.
Yeah. You can break your back against the laws of the universe. You can break yourself against the laws of the universe, or you can just like go with them and things will work out in your favor.
So I always try to reframe the Sermon on the Mount for people. It's like, it's not Jesus up there telling you, here's what you should do, and if you don't do these things, you're bad. He was saying like, I wrote the universe laws, so like, here's what they are, and if you want to like follow them, your life will be better, right? So that's sort of that was the first thing that stuck out. But second, and I think probably one of the more interesting things, is you said the challenging is your superpower, and it reminded me of a lot of like some of my own sort of skills and passions and whatnot. And I sort of feel like, after talking with you for a little while, we're cut from the same cloth. And I wanted to share something with you that was a really big breakthrough for me, that my wife actually taught me.
Cool. Yes.
About myself, that I think ties really directly to being the kind of person who is a challenger. So she has her degree in education. Mm-hmm. And in the education space, in teaching children and teaching young adults to grow into human beings, they have breakdowns for so IQ level is like a measurable thing. Mm-hmm. And then they have breakdowns for like how you teach people in different IQ sets. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that really blew me away was like, once you get over the 130 IQ level, you get into the zone of what they call your smart kids, right? right? So you have, these are your smart kids, and your smart kids you have to deal with differently than pretty much everyone else because they'll challenge
Smart.
you. They're smart.
Or they'll challenge you?
They'll
Okay,
challenge
cool.
you, or they'll challenge you, or they'll not pay attention in class because they're bored, that kind of stuff. And you either you help them, and you challenge them, or you end up with kids who are bored, or kids who are aren't thriving, or you end up with kids who are who become destructive, right? So anyways, there's a whole stuff on like how you deal with smart kids. And one of the things that that really blew me away, she was like, they actually break down smart kids into two sections. And so there's what they call bright kids and gifted kids. And the difference is not IQ level. It's how they look at the world, right? So the overwhelming majority of smart kids fall into the bright camp, right? So, like 90% of kids who are smart are bright.
Yeah.
And what bright means is if I ask you a question, what's 2 + 2, a bright kid says 4.
Yeah.
Right? Because you ask a question, they give you an answer. A gifted kid, if you say, what's 2 + 2, they're going to ask you why. Right? They're going to look at it and be like, what kind of, what's our, what's the 2 + 2? Or is it two eggs? Right? Is it, or is it 2 eggs in a stove and we're going to get an omelet? Like they want context, right? They want to look at the reasons behind the questions, and they want to challenge everything that comes through.
You are speaking my language, pal.
Yeah. So the gifted subset of people is about 10% of the bright kids, and inside your gifted subset is where you find the savants, right? So if you're familiar with people like, what was his name, Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, he would be in the savant section of the gifted kids. But it doesn't really, you could have a lower IQ than someone who's one of the bright kids. It's a matter of how you look at the world. And it was a big breakthrough for me because I realized that, like, in my group of friends in high school, my friends were the valedictorian and salutatorian and the top of like 5 GPAs in a school of 4,500 people, right? Yeah. And then there was me, and I had a B average, right? But I was just as smart as all of them. I just figured out what the school system was, and I was like, my dad told me I had to at least get B's, so I got B's in everything because we were at a college prep school, and they gave us a syllabus at the beginning of the year and had all the stuff that was graded, and I was like, so if I do that project, I've got an A, like I've B plus A, and that's it. So then I was the kid who was working on businesses on the side while while still maintaining my GPA average, and my friends were like, I don't understand how you don't work at all. And yet you get grades that are almost as good as ours. But it's because of that like mentality. I'm always challenging and asking why and looking for the reasons behind things. And it was a big breakthrough for me. A couple of years ago, my wife sort of brought me onto that, because my wife's on the bright side and I'm on the gifted side for that, and realizing that it really impacts the way you look at the world. And it impacts the way that you look at problems, and it impacts the way that you solve things, because you're never really going to be the person who's interested in the answer. So when it comes to building and developing your business, one of the things that I've noticed is I can't be the person who does the thing, right? I need to hire people like my wife to do the things, because they're really interested in getting the answer and getting the outcome and checking off the things on the list and doing it well and doing it right. I'm more interested in, how can I figure out the system? And as soon as I've figured out the thing, then I don't care anymore.
Oh my gosh, you and I are very much cut from the same cloth in that regard. Because growing up, my mom would be like, I would like have a project, or I would have something that I was fascinated in. And then once I'd figured it out, I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, you're done. You don't care anymore.
I'm good. So, and it's interesting to me because I studied kinesiology in high school, and it was a college prep school as well. And I could care less. Like, I really could have cared less. However, at the time I was deeply struggling with an eating disorder and had massive body dysmorphia. Fast forward a few years later, I had found Pilates and I was obsessed. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I actually felt good in my body. And learning kinesiology from that standpoint of purpose of like, okay, now I know how to apply it. Now I know how like when I move these muscles, when I engage these muscles, then it makes my posture look better, which makes me look fitter, which makes me look more toned, which makes me feel happier, which makes me feel more confident. Like that helped me figure it out. But I love this difference. Thank you so much, Richard, for this. I'm so sharing this with my husband to be like, I'm gifted.
I feel like you just said a few things that sort of triggered me, and like I feel like you sort of think the way I do. And we're not a common breed on that side. So you probably have not had anyone ever frame it that way for you, that you're not actually crazy, right? Because like, that's one of the things that I've always thought. I was like, I don't think like a normal person. And one of the things that you'll find is other people who are very bright will find you intimidating, because they don't think about questions the way that you do, right? They don't think through answers the way that you do. So if you get like, in a mastermind full of people who are all very, very bright and very good at what they do, you'll find they'll look at you and they'll be like, you're an alien in this room, right? Like, what planet are you from? That kind of thing. Because when you ask the questions that you ask, they're going to think to themselves, I never would have thought of that. And then you run into this problem where people are like, I feel like that person's smarter than me, but I don't understand why, right? So it impacts relationships and stuff like that. So for your own understanding, it's really useful to sort of know where that is, so you can help frame it for other people, so you can frame it for yourself, and then also in business, so you can actually understand and be like, hey, the thing that I'm really interested in is the challenging and the figuring out. And I realize that like, once I've got it figured out, I have to have systems in place to take over for me when my passion dies.
Yep.
Because I know where the line is, right? Like, once it hits this point, I'm done. I don't give a damn anymore. Yeah. And it's never going to get accomplished. So I have to have people on the other side of that spectrum who are going to pick up and take off with it. And it really helps for my business.
150%. That was exactly what happened when I launched my podcast. When I launched The Princess and the Bee, I was dead set on figuring it out. It took me a month or so, and I got everything set up, and then I was like, okay, this is the system, and I broke it down in a system, and then I was losing my joy for it. I was like, I love podcasting, but like, why am I losing my joy? I was like, oh, I'm not operating my genius zone, which is creating and connecting, or challenging people's beliefs by speaking, and through what I say. And then, so I just pass it off to my assistant. And she's been so happy about that choice, because she loves it. She's like, I learned so much. But I make sure that I hire everybody who's very systematic. Like, I have a personality test that I use for hiring my team, and I make sure that they think differently than I do, because I want people who think in processes, but who also are very like nurturing with customer relationships. So they think in the process of, how can we nurture the customer? How can we nurture our clients and serve them better? And then they build a process for that. And I'm like, yes, that's.
So, other tidbit, I heard you mention that you were introverted.
Yes.
I'm also introverted. And so one of the things that like I did as a kid was I started paying really close attention to people I knew who were extroverted, and starting doing the whole mirroring and matching, and like figuring out what they were doing that was different than me. And like my mom was one of those people, right, that was really extroverted and like a butterfly in the room kind of thing. And I was used to like, as embarrassing as it is, I would take notes on her social interactions. And I taught myself how to be an extroverted person. And part of that comes from being on that gifted side. So of the bright versus gifted in the smart kids section. So anyways, I was like, I feel like we're cut from the same cloth.
Very much so. Yeah. I taught myself how to be extroverted, because my mom, my mom also helped me, because I was like, I had this one friend who was so cool, and I kind of modeled her, but I wasn't quite sure how to do it. And my mom just said, Kim, just go up to 10 people every day and say hi with their name. And I later told her, I was like, Mom, that worked. Like, I told her in my adult life, I was like, I still do it. That's what's made me successful in business. And she was like, oh, really? That worked? I was just throwing something out there. I didn't know. I didn't know. I just wanted you to have some friends. So, but I did that, and I started to see the positive reaction, and automatically I'm like, okay, this is getting the response that I'm looking for. And so I just kept doing that.
Yeah. And that sort of analytical nature that you've got, that's all part of that other side. Anyways.
That's so
Hope,
cool. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to brag with that on that to my husband. Be like, you
there you go.
woman.
So that was a really sort of deeper discussion on superpowers than we normally get into on this show. But the flip side of that
I have that
is,
effect on people.
yeah, it happens. The flip side of that is the fatal flaw, right? Just like Superman has his kryptonite, or, you know, Batman has his, you know, is not actually a superhero. I don't actually know what Wonder Woman's fatal flaw is. I've not followed her comics enough to know what she's weak to. So maybe I should bring that up for my my female guests who like Wonder Woman. But the fatal flaw, what I like to think of that is like the thing that you've struggled with in growing your business, the thing that stops you and you realize that, like, I've had to work on this in order to sort of break my own barriers and get farther forward. Something that, you know, what do you think that is for you?
Well, my arch nemesis is fear. Like,
Yeah.
it's basically fear and doubt, but it manifests in it's my arch nemesis. It manifests itself in very different forms. Sometimes it manifests as habits, like negative coping habits. Sometimes it manifests as procrastination. Sometimes it manifests as self-sabotage. So it's very much a shapeshifter, almost like a duality to my challenger. And so it likes to change forms because my challenger will challenge the form and then it will shift.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for that. I know, like, mine has always been things like perfectionism.
Yeah.
Pops up a lot. And what's interesting is perfectionism is really, it's the type of fear.
Yeah.
It's a fear of shipping to the market. Because you realize that perfection is not a thing that you can achieve. So it's like the lowest standard you can hold yourself to.
Yep. Yeah.
And so anyways, like that was one of the ones for me. But yeah, so I guess the more important question is, how have you been dealing with that for people who have similar flaws?
Well, I think for like fear as a shapeshifter of whether it shifts into perfectionism or self-sabotage or some other form of coping or delay or procrastination, the biggest thing is recognizing it when it's there. And then as soon as you recognize it, like, that's when you step into the arena and you go immediately into taking an action that you can't back down from. So sometimes maybe that's posting something on social media. Maybe that is immediately just saying, okay, I'm going all in on this. Like, don't distract me. Maybe it's making a decision to say, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm feeling fear. It's causing me to procrastinate, or it's causing me to like do this like productive procrastination avoidance thing. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to come back. I'm going to have my state shifted, because the quickest way to shift yourself out of that shifty fear-based state is to change your physiology. Yeah. So turn on music, go for a run, but like do something that literally puts you into like physical action. So like for me, going on stage, like I have challenged myself to do a lot more live in-person events this year, simply because I know that that's something that it's a muscle that I want to strengthen, but it's still scary for me. So when I spoke at EmpowerCon at the Los Angeles Convention Center last year, I was backstage and I had my earbuds in, I had certain music, I had my triggers, my positive triggers set up so that I knew what I was doing, so that I have moves that make me feel really powerful. I have songs that make me feel really powerful. And so having those physical, emotional, audiological triggers can snap you out of it.
I always called those your psychological triggers, right? For putting yourself into what you want. And like these are things like for people who are listening, like all the way down to like, if you want to make sure that you're brushing your teeth every day, right? Maybe you're not like setting yourself a reminder to brush your teeth is not probably the right way to do it. It's like, how do you shift your environment so that brushing your teeth is an inevitability, right?
Mhm.
So like for me, like if I keep my toothbrush on the sink, like outside the shower, I'll forget to brush my teeth, but I never forget to take a shower. If I move my toothbrush into the shower, I don't forget anymore, right? Because you're setting
Ah,
up your environment. You set up your environment for success, right? And
yeah.
so that's sort of what you're talking about. Is how do you set your environment up so that you have success in the thing that you're doing, right? And you build those psychological triggers in to overcome the fear, overcome the
Yep,
procrastination.
I literally have two labels on my computer. One is in my top left, because in your top left, that's my visual recall. So I'm able to easily recall that fear is boring, and that's what it literally says. It says that fear is boring. So any form of self-sabotage or coping or perfectionism, it's boring, and it's so mediocre because everyone experiences it, and
Done with it.
I'm working to bust out of that. And so that's the thing, is as soon as I connect it with it being boring, average, and mediocre, I'm like, oh, I'm like, I prefer to be anything but average. And then at the bottom of my screen, which really was a powerful reminder for me today, because we were dealing with just some issues going on and with some social medias. And I was like, I looked at the bottom of my screen, it says, I am a warrior for possibility. And I was like, because I did not want to step into that arena. I was like, and then I saw that and I was like, game on. Okay, let's do this. Let's figure this out. All right. And it hit me in the gut. And I was like, okay, I have that visual trigger. So setting yourself up with triggers, like what you said, the toothbrush, I have little Post-its and notes in certain places to remind me of what I'm working on becoming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I love like that skill set is a really powerful skill set for entrepreneurs to pick up, right?
Yes.
Because most of the world relies on outside influences to change their action.
Mm-hmm.
And entrepreneurs, we have to create that for ourselves. So learning how to set up your own triggers for your work, right? Like I love that whole idea is like, I'm a warrior for possibilities. For you, it's a trigger that like, hey, I've got to step into this arena and take charge. Right.
Yep.
And it's something that you have to do for yourself. And that's what allows entrepreneurs to do what they do and to push farther. And that's why, like, as a younger entrepreneur, I used to think that anyone could be an entrepreneur. And I've realized as I've grown up that it's not really that anyone can be an entrepreneur. It's more that an entrepreneur can come from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that like, that it takes a skill set and a certain willingness to push yourself beyond the way normal people would push themselves. And so anyways,
I think that entrepreneurship is very much personal development on steroids.
yeah.
And I do believe that entrepreneurs are like, when you actually set out on the journey, on the quest to build a business around something that you care deeply about, I believe that that's like a spiritual calling.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that that is super powerful, whether you're selling washing machines or you're selling transformative coaching or you're selling podcast services. Like if you are on a mission to make something better because you know that you can make it better, you can do it better, and you are using your superpower, your genius zone,
Mm-hmm.
that is it very much feels like a calling, and to back down from it is
You're doing the world a disservice.
you're doing the world a massive disservice. And I was blessed to be at Business Mastery with Tony Robbins recently, and sitting in a room, it was it was definitely one of the top 5 most powerful experiences that I've had. We were in a room, 2,000 people, business leaders and entrepreneurs alike. And Tony was talking about this charity called Operation Underground Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And he shared, and he said, some of the proceeds from this event go to that charity. And if you'd like to donate more, and like immediately I saw it was the Red Seas. They parted, and suddenly there was 2 lines completely, like pretty much 95% of the audience emptied out of their seat to donate money to this cause that actually goes in and rescues children from child slavery and sex slavery. And it was so powerful. And it was just being in that room and then learning within the span of 30 minutes, we raised $1 million collectively. And I was like, that is the force of good that business can be. That is what happens when good-hearted, mission-minded, soul-led entrepreneurs step up, step into their calling, and make a difference.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting to me too that one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that it doesn't take as much as people think to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
Right. At what it is that you do with the perspective that you bring. Right. And what's interesting is it doesn't necessarily, like, people think best in the world equals, just to use your example, Tony Robbins is the best in the world at what he does.
Yes.
Right. But what he does happens to be very public. Right. Mm-hmm. But not everything is like that. Like one of my clients, his dad, it was a number of years ago, his dad ran a company. They came in, they were immigrants. He became the guy in the US that put the tiles in for underwater water fixtures for hotels. Right. So like if you go to like the Bellagio and all the tiles that are under the water for their underground water show, like his company did that. And they do that for hotels and water fountains all over the country. Right. And they've been doing it for 20, 30 years, something like that. And he's like the guy that, like, if you're the guy, if you're building a thing and you have a water feature and you need to have tiles that are put in underwater, like, they're the company you call. And I was like, it's one of those things that, like, you never really think about it, because like everything in your life is touched by an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so you realize that like there's someone out there, like this is just sort of the way I think all the time. I was in the shower the other day and my wife had, we had the very common occurrence when you have a lot of ladies in the house that there's hair in the thing, and she had popped the drain off and pulled them all off. And I was just holding the little drain plug for her while she was pulling hair out, and I was looking at it, had the stamp of the company name on the bottom side. And I was like, this little metal drain plug, there's a company that, like, this is what they do. They make the little drain plug things for showers. And like, I've never even thought about it before, but there's an entrepreneur out there that was like, you know what we need to do? We need to up level our game for making the shower.
Like, we need to have an effective drain plug that looks quite nice. It's quality. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why I love the example on like a show, Modern Family, of one of the characters. He owns a closet business, and like, that's what he does. He puts in like closets. Yeah. And thinking about it, I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I guess people could use like a refresh on some closet space. And, because if they're not very used to color coding or having a process of clothing that fits their lifestyle. So, but I love that you said everything you do, everything you have is literally, it's touched by an entrepreneur, whether
at some point
directly or indirectly. Yeah. At some point it absolutely is.
Yeah. And so my encouragement for entrepreneurs is to not fall into the trap of thinking that you're going for fame, and fall more into the realm that you are bringing your best self to whatever problem is you're solving. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's it's a really useful, like, framework, I think, for thinking about whatever it is that you do.
And also, I mean, a lot of times people think, like with the, with Shark Tank and things like that, that entrepreneurship is this like fame, big, sexy thing. It's like, it's not always that sexy, for one. And for two, if you gave me either like fame or money, I would take money. Yeah, why? Because you can do much more of a difference. Like you can change the world. And I do believe that, like, entrepreneurs, when they really do step into the arena and they decide, because I mean, I've worked with a lot of people who are kind of in that vacillating space of like, am I worthy? Do I deserve to be making this much? And I think there's always that sort of like internal money battle that goes on, initially, at least. And I truly believe that it is like, when you feel called to fulfill this like calling, whether it's making drain plugs or like becoming, your own version of Tony Robbins and doing large events and transforming lives or whatever it is, that is a soul-based mission. And it is your job to be making more money. And it's actually your spiritual calling to be making more money so you can serve more people. Because as my
so you
mentor,
help more people do it.
Exactly. And by you making more money, you are being an inspiration and an example for what is possible. Like, that's why I love when like people who come from marginalized communities step into the realm of entrepreneurship and are crushing it. And they are showing those communities what is possible for them and how you can shift and how you can grow.
And it's amazing to me what kind of force for good business can be, because like one of the things that's always sort of driven me crazy as, you know, the kind of person I am is like, you know, I've already mentioned, you know, I sort of grew up in the Christian realm. So went to church all the time with my family, and, you know, they always pass the offering plate, right? And you know, everyone comes by and they put their $5 in or their $20 in. It always bothered me, not because those people shouldn't do that. It's just that it was that, like, for me, I knew that was not what I needed to be doing, right? I needed to be taking my $20 and putting it into business, because I would get to a point in my business where I could buy the church building, right? Where I could start nonprofit organizations that have massive impacts, right? Because like I have a plan like laid out from this business to the next business that'll probably put us into the $100 million a month cash flow, like,
well done.
in the next 10 years, right? That is the kind of, like, I would like to get to that point, because that's where you can start making massive differences. And so like, it's the, like, that's what entrepreneurship is. It's not talking about like, how do I, you know, everyone can contribute and make their difference, but entrepreneurship is about making the big differences, right? How do you solve the big problems and really move the needle? And I think that like that's why I built this show, right? It's because I want to feature those people who are looking like, how do I move the needle in a big way?
I totally agree.